Mexico, Italy, Thailand.
I'd probably go India, Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam.
Oh, India. I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot about India.
Then I'd probably throw Italy in for a fifth spot.
You do love a spaghetti.
But like China, Japan?
True. I like lots of food.
I do like lots of food.
As long as I'm well fed, I'm happy.
Doesn't matter where it's from.
Yeah. Yum, yum.
Well said. Well, welcome everyone to a very hungry episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy. Give me those noodles, Randhawa. And with me is Samantha. Yum, yum, Randhawa.
Hi.
So we are continuing on our little travel suite of episodes. And today we are going to talk about the last leg of our trip, which was in the great city of Bangkok, Thailand.
Yeah.
I kind of miss our old episodes of movies and such.
Well, we'll get back to that next week.
Next week. True. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, this would be a weird first episode. Yeah, usually we're a movie podcast, but in the last few weeks we went on a big trip, so we talked about our first week in Kuala Lumpur and a little bit around Malaysia. The second week we were in southern Thailand, kind of around Krabi, and we finished off our trip, which was I think like 23 days-ish, with a week in Bangkok. And this is probably the place you knew most about going in.
Yeah.
And the place that I probably did too, because I have been to Bangkok. This was my fourth time. One was just a really short one, but I've been there a few times. The first time I was there was about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And before this recent time, the last time was 10 years ago. Between those, the 15 and 10, it was pretty much the same. I didn't see everything being so different in those 5 years, but it was definitely different this time. First off, it was far more expensive, but I think that is kind of everywhere. Everything's gotten more expensive in the last 5 years.
Yes. Yeah. I think everything, like flights we were saying in our first episode, are more expensive than you ever remember them being. I think hotels, like everything's just gotten more expensive.
Because people are realizing now that like they can squeeze everything out of the poor people and charge whatever they want. Because what are we going to do? Not exist?
Not go?
Yeah, we need to exist. We need to buy food and places to stay. So we're just going to do it. And the other thing that was so different is Bangkok is definitely not homogenous. It is not just some bland city like, I don't know, I was going to say Shreveport, Louisiana, but I've never been to Shreveport. It might be bustling and vibrant, so apologies.
Shreveport might be very offended if they hear this.
Yeah. So if you're from Shreveport, tell me about it.
Yeah.
What's another one? Edmonton. We can speak on that.
Yeah, we live here, so.
Because where we live, they are trying to make things as generic as possible.
Yeah.
If you open up a new bar here, it's called Public House or Social Place. And they just have generic names that sound like we are in a dystopian future of like, yeah, we'll just give it the feel of a public house. What do we call it? How about local public house? And we try to make things the same everywhere. You go to every restaurant, you can get the same kinds of foods. And I know there's the little ones that are good, but that's kind of the way things move. And it's weird seeing that infiltrate a place like Bangkok. And I don't know if it seemed like that to you at all, but there were markets that I had been to in the past and going back to it now. And I'm like, oh, they just cleaned it all up, jacked up the price, and you get the same food at each place now. And it's kind of centrally managed, which is weird.
Yeah.
And unpleasant because that's not what I like about going to different places.
Yeah, I definitely didn't notice it, I think, as much as you did because you have that frame of reference, but it definitely didn't look like some of the photos that we looked at before we went, like that you would show me like research wise. And I don't know, I enjoyed everything that we did.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed all of the names of things because like they have like English names for lots of restaurants and stuff for the tourists, and some of them are like real wacky, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I didn't key in on that. Maybe it's because I lived in a country where everyone's t-shirts were always constantly weird English translations. But like, what are some names that were fun?
Oh, there was a restaurant called Heart Attack Amount of Butter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That one was pretty good. We did take a picture of that.
And there was just like funny restaurants like that. Wine I Love You. I can't think of any more off the top of my head. Oh, Nails O'Clock was a nail studio that we walked by and I had to take a picture. But there's just like really funny, like kitschy names like that are like, they're funny to me. I really enjoyed walking around and seeing all these names. And then when we got back to Edmonton, I think I complained like in the car from the airport. I was like, oh, all the names are so boring.
I guess when you're comparing it to the new bar that opened up called Local Eatery, it does sound,
Yeah.
Those are a lot more fun.
I was like highly entertained by the names of places.
Personally, Bangkok is always very special to me because I was going to say it was my first vacation, but that's not true at all. I'd already lived in Norway and traveled around Europe, and I'd been to India, and I'd been living in Korea. But my first year in Korea was like a junk year. It wasn't good. I don't know how I got to go back, but because I knew what not to do and where not to go. So my first year in Korea, I was not having a good time. And in that 1 year, you get 5 vacation days. There were 2 long weekends the entire year, and we work full year, so it's not like you
Right.
have a vacation. And I got 5 vacation days for the full year. And I took my 5 vacation days to go to Bangkok. And it was so much fun. And if I hadn't done that, I don't know if I would have gone back to live in Asia for as long as I did, because it showed me like all of the fun things. I wasn't just working. I wasn't in a town where they wouldn't serve me, because like where I lived in Gwangju, they don't serve brown people at certain bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
And they would just kick you out. People yell at you out in the street. So when I went to Bangkok, and I just was able to kind of blend in because there's people from everywhere. And the food was great. I could go into places that had air conditioning. And I know I'm shitting on Gwangju, but like, yeah, fuck them. It's a garbage town a lot of the time. Although some of my best friends are from there. But I told them that because the town was terrible to me, so I can be terrible to them.
Yeah.
So Bangkok was always very special for me because of that first time I went. And I was able to go back a couple of times because I lived over there for a while, and it never disappointed. This time, there were things that disappointed me because I had, but not like the trip. It was great. It was a great week, but because I had certain expectations, because some of these places I had been to, like I've been here and done these things. So I tried to recreate that a little, and it's been 10 years. Things are different now.
Yes. And like with how much technology has changed in the last 10 years, like how rapidly everything kind of came to be phone wise and like payment wise and everything. A lot of the research that I did even like 5 years ago was like out of date. I feel like when we first started talking about this trip and I did some like light Googling, just because we didn't have like a date or plan in mind, it was really interesting to me to like, oh, like it's all cash and there's like very little like paying with credit cards and stuff, and like just learning about that kind of thing. And then like cell phones like weren't really like good for international travel. So I think it's really interesting to see how easy it was to get around and get a SIM card and like be completely connected to everything while we were there.
And everyone's paying on their phones. Where should we start talking about our trip? I think one of the things we did the most, and something that was very different from how I was traveling alone, is a shopping.
Oh, we did
maybe we
so
should do
much shopping.
a rundown of malls.
Yes.
Because Bangkok is a city of malls.
Oh, so many. There's a mall on every corner.
And I don't love wandering around malls, but I started to like it. I like going shopping.
Yeah.
And I like going to the malls with a reason of like, hey, I want to buy these things. What's the best deal? Then I got into things. But when it was just, hey, let's walk through a mall for a while, that was less interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love just looking at stuff. Like I could wander a mall and just like look at things in booths forever.
And we nearly did.
We nearly did. But we did have some purchases that we wanted to make. And so on I think our second day that we were there, we went and did some like shopping research, which was pretty great.
By shopping research, you mean shopping?
Shopping, yes. But I mean, like, there were some bigger purchases that we wanted to make. And so we did some looking around and pricing things out and that kind of thing. And then came back a few days later to actually make the purchases. And we were so efficient when we came back.
So we went to Terminal 21 was probably the first one. And then we went to the Siams. So there's Siam Paragon, Siam 1 and Siam Square 1 and
Siam Discovery.
They're all kind of attached.
Yeah, because there's like pedways between all of them.
Siam Paragon was nice. It was the fanciest of them.
Yes, and that's where you get your Prada and your Louis Vuitton and like Cartier and everything.
We were going to just leave that one, but there was a Uniqlo there.
Yes.
And the Uniqlo in Thailand is cheaper than ours, so we bought some stuff there.
Yes, and there were some tops that I wore nonstop while we were there, and they were $10 cheaper than in Canada, so I felt like that was a really good deal to go.
And I bought the 16th century Japanese painting t-shirts that I saw in the Japan airport in Tokyo, and they were cheaper there too.
Yes.
But the other Siams, we were just kind of going through. I think we probably bought some stuff here and there. But the big one was probably MBK,
yes.
the MBK Center.
So if you don't know about Thailand, MBK is like the mall for counterfeit bags, basically.
But also so much more.
Yeah.
Because there's an entire floor of like cell phone accessories, like not just cases, but you need a screen replacement for a phone that hasn't been made in 6 years. That's the place to go.
Yeah.
And then there's just regular stuff as well. It's only half of one of the, is it 7 floors? 8 floors? Something like that.
I think it was 8 floors.
Half of one of them is the kind of the counterfeity area.
Yes.
And we went there, and the first day we couldn't even find it.
We spent, I think, about 2 hours wandering this 8-floor mall that was probably, do you think it was like 3 city blocks wide?
Seemed like 19, but yeah, somewhere around there.
It felt like 19 once you're lost in there. There's like no ability to see outside. There's no way to like really get your bearings. And it's very twisty and turny, which is surprising for like a big mall.
But it's not. It is literally one straight line.
Yes.
But we managed to get lost.
Yes. And when you're standing at one end of the straight line, you can't see where the mall ends.
Yeah, you can
if
just
that gives
look.
you an idea. Yeah.
I think the horizon happens before you see the end of the mall.
I think so. I think sunsets inside this mall. But yeah, so we wandered around for about 2 hours, and then all of a sudden these booths appeared, and it was kind of, there were stores along the edge, and then there were kind of like haphazard tables and little like booths there, and it was kind of like a market.
And those places that had the fakes, though, I think you need to talk about the back rooms.
Oh, yes. So Indy and I were shopping for different things, and to like kind of maximize our time. Sometimes we would split up, and I discovered very quickly once we found all the shops that we wanted to go into that the good stuff is in the secret room in the back. The front part of these stores is quite small and can just be packed from ceiling to floor, but they really, really want you to go into the secret room because that's where all the good stuff is. And so the entire time I was in these shops, they just kept trying to like pull me into the back room, and I was scared of losing Indy because we were in a foreign country and I didn't want to just disappear in a mall.
I think you're kind of burying the lead.
Oh, yes.
That a panel of a wall opens up, and there's an entire shop with high-end knockoffs in this like, secret room. And it's kind of like luxurious back there.
There's
nice
usually like a couch.
And stuff.
You can sit and you can like, they'll bring everything to you. You can tell them exactly what you're looking for. But I quickly realized that the price I was willing to pay for a bag was front room prices.
Yeah, you're a front room girl.
Yeah. So the second time we went back, it was, we were saying no to going into the back rooms.
But the back rooms, if you are someone who wants a knockoff bag that you can't tell the difference, that's where you go. Because they have these, I don't know my bags as well, but you were telling me that it's a $20,000 bag and they're selling it for $800 back there.
Yeah.
And if you go to the front room, you can get one where if you look close enough, you can see the differences, but then you're looking more at $50
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah. So like the prices jump, and we did go into a couple back rooms, and I did get to see some of the products that were back there, and they are like almost indistinguishable. It's crazy how like these look like exact replicas, and I was okay not having the perfect replica because I just wanted a good deal.
MBK Center, I think we went to, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
But at the very end of our trip, on our last day, we were just exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing I wasn't ready for, was a day where I was like, I don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
So our last day, we went and saw Moana 2 in the theater there.
Yes. I mean, big cushy recliners and blankets. They give you blankets like on an airplane. It was pretty great.
And what do you think about Moana 2?
I really enjoyed it. It was catchy, but not as catchy as the first one. And I liked the story and most of the characters.
Yeah, I think it overall gets it was quite good. Mm-hmm. Everything's not quite as good as the first one, I'd say, but I liked it. I thought it was very good.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But we're not going to get any more into it than that, I think.
No.
It's good. We recommend it.
It's good. We recommend it. It was in the giant mall.
Yes.
One of the giant malls.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different fancy theaters there, some of which have full beds that you can lay down in. We went into one where it had 2 kind of adjoining recliner, big giant chairs with blankets, and it was pretty nice. And there was a nice cafe attached to it.
And our movie tickets came with like free like coffee house beverages at with our ticket. So that was pretty cool.
For more shopping places, there was Icon Siam.
Oh, yes.
Which is a newer one, and it's something to behold.
It is like the theme park of shopping.
Yeah, that one I was content to go in even without like buying something, just to see it.
Mm-hmm. And this is another like pretty high-end one. There was some kind of more mid-range ones like H&M and Uniqlo again, but yeah, it was like a whole thing in itself.
There's indoor lakes and rivers, and they just have an entire indoor street market. It makes it look like you're outdoors, and I both loved and hated that, because it is like, hey, this is cool. It looks like you're in a real market in Bangkok. But then you're like, yeah, I could just go to a real market in Bangkok.
Yeah.
I'm right here. And it's kind of weird to see like, well, let's sanitize it and let everyone come to see this version rather than the one out there. Because a lot of the markets that I loved have since been closed or revitalized, they call it, but it's just like gentrified essentially. And I completely understand that I am part of the problem, because I'm a foreigner coming to these markets and bringing my money. So then everyone's like, let's take that money and make it more appealing to foreigners and but less appealing to me, I guess. Yeah,
it was pretty cool. And it was a welcome indoor activity because earlier that day we had gone to the Royal Palace and it was like 35 degrees outside. So I was very, very like hot and ready to be in some air conditioning. So it was nice to kind of go into the mall. They have the movie theater with the beds in there and a whole conference center and a whole hotel. And it was just like every floor had something crazy in it.
We also went to a market called Asiatique. Mm-hmm. That was one of those ones that has been developed and is clearly just for tourists.
Yeah,
right?
It was like we looked at so many restaurants there and it was pretty much the same menu everywhere. So that was a little disappointing. And then all the shops were like very similar in what they were selling. And it was all just very touristy. And that was one thing that I was like a little disappointed about because I thought it was going to be more exciting than it actually was.
So Asiatique, not a good one. One step up on that is Jod Fairs 2, 3, whatever this one is now.
Right.
This is a market, the name of which I had been to 15 years ago and said, oh, this one's great. You're going to love it. And then I went back and it's not that anymore. The thing I'd been to has been torn down or dismantled or whatever. And now it's kind of uniform booths that are built there and they look very nice. But it definitely has lost some of the charm and variety. It was still good.
Yeah, we still like had a good time. We got some good food, but it was very mall-like.
Yeah.
Like it was very boutique-y kind of feeling to most of the shops. And then yeah, it just didn't sound like the market that you had told me about.
Yeah, and the foods, again, there's such a variety of foods. There's so many places, like, I don't know, 40, 50 different places you can eat at. And there's about 90% overlap in what they're offering.
Yeah, there was like a few other options more than at Asiatique, but it was, it was kind of the same thing at every booth, which was disappointing, but I liked that market better.
But then we probably have to talk about the best market that we went to,
yes,
shopping-wise at least, and that is Chatuchak Market, which is something you've been looking at for many years, and I had told you was that was one of the first places I went to when I was in Bangkok because it's a weekend market, and I arrived on a Saturday morning, so I went right to the market and jumped right into things, and I said that maybe my very best meal I had in Thailand was outside of this market. That's where I bought a bunch of fake stuff that I still had till this day. And you were excited to go back. And I also said it is also huge and overwhelming. So with all of that in mind, did it live up to all of it?
Yes. It was, I like tried really hard to like, for some of these things where I knew I wanted to do some shopping or spend a lot of time, I did some research and it really didn't help me at all. This place is so huge. And when you're inside one of the kind of annexes, you're like totally lost. I have no idea what direction I'm going in. No. I have no idea if I'm in the same building. There's, lots of sellers who are selling similar things. Like there's a lot of clothes at this market, and it was kind of hard to get your bearings because you'd go down a hallway and you'd see 3 shops who had very similar displays. And so we were like, have we been in the same building for 4 hours? Like, are we just walking in circles? And then you'd see something new and you're like, oh no. So it was very confusing. We did get some good deals, but it was very overwhelming, but fun.
I still really like that one. It's so big that, yeah, it is disorienting, but there's a whole area where it's all just like vintage stuff. And I saw like some old beaver canoe sweaters, and you could get a like Steve Stais Oilers jersey. They have the weirdest selection of vintage stuff. That was real fun. Then there's all the decorative stuff and all the new clothing. And then there are just people who have like their own little shop. I just bought a bunch of polo type shirts from just someone who just makes shirts and sells them there. They're not any sorts of knockoffs or anything. They're just nice shirts.
There was like 100 different colors at this booth.
And I wanted them all.
Yes.
And I had said that just outside of it, there is this park. And on the street between the park and the market are stalls. There's, of course, all sorts of food inside it, too. But those stalls, it's a little cooler out there. And that's where I said I had my best meal way back when. And I think my best meal of this trip to Thailand was there again.
Yeah, we had a very good meal over there. And it was nice. You get to sit on the side of the road and just like take in the ambience of the market.
And it's always just 1 or 2 people, and you just tell them what you want, and they make it right there and then. And there's only room for like maybe 8 other people to be sitting there too. So it was great. I love those types of places best.
Yeah, that was very cool. And I was excited to see if we could find a place that was like the one that you ate at. And I think we succeeded.
So does that cover all of our shopping?
I think so.
We did to go to a bunch of malls on our last day, but I don't even remember those ones.
We went back to Chattachat and... Oh, no.
We did not.
Sorry, no. We did, a bunch of malls, but I can't remember what they were.
Well, we can talk about some of the other things we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that kind of affected maybe the entire week, definitely the first 4 days, was that it was Lunar New Year. Mm-hmm. And the way it fell this year, a lot of people had 5-day weekends.
Yes.
So our first day was New Year itself. And we thought, oh, we'll go into Chinatown. And I'm sure it'll be so fun because we'll go to Yaowarat Street in the main part of Chinatown. I'd been there before, where there's all sorts of stalls and restaurants and little bar type things. That'll be a great way to spend the day. We managed to get on the subway there. Mm-hmm. It's very, very crowded. And we just couldn't move.
Nope.
There were blocks and blocks of... You could just see the crowd as far as your eyes could see, shoulder to shoulder. And we did about a lap of one block and then just went back down because there was no way we'd ever be able to get anything to eat or drink.
No, the restaurants were packed, that you couldn't even get near most of them. And it was just shoulder to shoulder people. And if you're like in a crowd of tourists, which there were lots of tourists, I like couldn't even see over some people. So it was kind of just like walking in a lineup. So we did get to go back though.
Yeah. It did seem like the vast majority of people were tourists, mainly from China, also a lot of Koreans. And then here, the Europeans were far lower down. There were definitely some Europeans and North Americans, but it is definitely the entire week we were there. There were so many Chinese tourists because they had a big long weekend, and that's a popular tourist destination. So everywhere we went, we definitely heard a lot more Chinese and Korean than we did Thai for those first 4 days until the next Monday came around and everyone had to start going back to work.
Yes, there's definitely like a change in who we saw around the city just after everybody went home.
And we did go back to Chinatown, I think 4 or 5 days later, and it was still quite busy, but we actually were able to get a meal at that time.
Yes, yeah. And then there was some markets around that we were actually able to see because there was no way we would have been able to actually get to the market and then back to the train because the walking was so slow. So it was nice to kind of get to go back and see it when there wasn't like 100,000 people on one city block.
And then for some of the other kind of big sites that we saw, we went to the Erawan Museum.
Yes, and that was on my list of things I really, really wanted to see. It was a big elephant, and inside it was all like pink and crockery work. So it was like very cool. I'm doing a very bad... Yeah, that's not a very good description.
So there's a large building, and on top of the building, there's an even larger elephant statue that's several stories tall, and it's like a three-headed elephant, and there is a kind of museum/temple thing in the building underneath it. Is that a little better?
Yeah, you did a way better job than I did. And
it's so intricate on the inside, that is, all of the work that's been done in there. It was beautiful. It was stunning. It was something that's a bit newer because a lot of the temples we are going to are hundreds of years old. This one is, I'm not sure how old it was actually, but it's, I would say, less than 50.
Yeah, it definitely is like a new place, and it's owned by like a private company. So it is a little bit more, it's interesting because it's kind of set up for tourists. So I felt like I was Google translating a lot of things because it had a lot of really interesting descriptions of like Buddhism and how like world religions fit together on the walls inside the museum. So that was very cool.
It's specifically about Buddhist cosmology, and that is about drawing lines from the cosmos into different religions and things like that. So yeah, there were some Hindu related stuff in there as well. There was even a little Christian section.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of stuff.
It was very cool to see how a lot of these religions kind of fit together and how they kind of mirror each other in ways. And yeah, it was just very cool. And I spent a lot of time just kind of like reading all the big panels and the crockery work, I guess, the decoration of the building itself is so intricate that you can look at it on like a big grand scale and it's really beautiful, but you can also just like stand right next to it and look at all the teeny tiny little pieces of like bowls and cups and stuff that I assume that they've broken up to decorate it. And it was just like, it was so cool to see the detail.
And then you can take these giant staircases up, way up top into, I guess, the elephant structures. And they have actual artifacts there, like some 1,000-year-old relics and statues of the Buddha, and just another little temple thing up top that has kind of the cosmos painted on the ceiling. And that was really cool. And then the other thing that is by this same company is the Ancient City, or Ancient Siam, it's sometimes called, which is a museum / park.
Like a historical theme park.
It is giant, and it's kind of the size of a city because it's something like 320 hectares.
Yeah.
And has 116 structures in it. And it has recreations of things you would find around Thailand, but scaled down. And when I heard about that, I thought, why would I want to see that? And then you see it, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's why, because it's amazing.
It is amazing. And it's amazing to see how even scaled down these buildings are like incredible. Like it was very, very cool to get to see some of these buildings and then to learn about the size that these buildings actually are. And then that was like a whole other little awe moment where I was like, ooh, that would be so much bigger than this, and this is already very impressive. So I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the audio tour quite a bit as well.
It's not all recreations. There are a lot of original things, and some of the most impressive ones, like there was this one area where it's a lake and there are buildings on stilts that have green and gold roofs, and it's a big series of them that you can walk to on boardwalks. And that was an original creation, and a few of the other ones are too. And yeah, it's very impressive. We saw maybe a quarter of it.
Yes, it is so big. And we bought tram tickets to ride the tram around the park. And the tram doesn't even go to the entire park. So, like, you'd need to spend, like, 2 full days there in order to, like, I think, see everything and be able to, like, walk around and see everything. But they had bikes and golf carts. They had lots of options to get around the park. And I think what we saw was amazing. So I was pretty happy, and I didn't feel like we missed out on anything.
No, we just couldn't go anymore.
Yeah. I think it was like the end of the day and we were pretty tired. So it was time.
We then went to attempt to go to the one microbrewery I could find, and it was closed because there was an election the next day.
Yeah.
And they can't serve alcohol.
That was so disappointing.
That was, because we drove so far for it.
We spent like an hour in the car to get there, and I was very disappointed because that's one thing that we had like looked up and gotten really excited about before the trip. So too bad. But we did get to go to Chinatown and have some beer and some dinner.
You know what I didn't do is actually write down all of the different temples we went to.
Oh, yeah.
We went to quite a few. Not as many as we went to malls. Malls is still number one. It was probably 7-Elevens first.
Yeah.
Malls second.
Yeah.
Restaurants third.
Yeah.
Then temples.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a day where we just kind of boated around and went to a bunch of temples. And one was the Big Buddha.
Yeah, there was one
disappointing.
that I was very specifically going to because I knew if you go across this canal, there's a great photo opportunity. And I was very excited for it. And we walked quite a while. We got there, and it is completely covered up because they are resurfacing it.
Regolding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of disappointing. But I really enjoyed the temple that's like attached to it, which is the one with the green glass kind of monument inside of it, and then the night sky at the top. So that was very cool to see.
That one is Wat Pak Nam.
Okay.
Yet the inside of that is very unique. And I thought this must be something new, but maybe it's been redone. But this temple was from 1610.
Oh.
So it's been around, but that inside, you don't see a lot of glowing green structures.
No.
Right?
And it was like very it kind of struck you like into awe. You were just like, wow.
It was gorgeous.
And like just staring at it so much. Then I realized that like everyone's looking at this beautiful ceiling and the green glass monument. I realized that like all of the ceilings like behind me were just as intricate and beautiful, and they had kind of like a story depicted on them, and they were also done in like gold and red, and like, but nobody was looking at them because everyone was looking into the monument area. So I was like trying to appreciate the entire room.
There was another one we went up to that kind of has a spiraling climb up a, not mountain exactly, but it's pretty tall, and you climb around it. It's not like a climb a walk upstairs, and the stairs spiral around it, and up top you have the actual structure, and there's some inside parts too, but that was a fun one because you got to go up there and then you get a view of the city once you're up there as well. That one was called Wat Saket Ratchawara Mahiwihan, I think. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I'm impressed that you're attempting all of these because they all have very long names. But yeah, that one was really cool. It seemed like there were different levels for different prayers and stuff, and then there was little shrines all the way up with like, I guess they were bells, kind of big like metal bells, and they all had family names on them. So I think that was like a family's bell, and you go and ring it if you're in that family maybe. But that seemed pretty cool.
I think it's often called like the Golden Mount. People in English call it because it's easier. But there was also a temple 5 minutes away from that we went to, and I walked inside up to the very top, and you can go up into the top of those spires. You stayed down because it gets dizzying.
Oh man, I couldn't.
And it was so hot.
It was so hot, and I just like I couldn't walk in a tight little circle like that for very long, so I stayed on one level. But yeah, it was very cool. I still got a very good view from where I got up to.
But probably the biggest thing was the Royal Palace.
Yes, that was very cool and hot. I had to like shake off my grumpiness because I did all this research trying to figure out dress code for the Royal Palace because I heard it's stricter than most temples, and I thought I had followed all the rules, and then I was forced to buy a t-shirt at a really overpriced t-shirt place inside the palace, and I was annoyed about that because it wasn't by choice. But once we got inside, it was extremely cool because you got to see just like how opulent it is in there.
And it was crazy seeing pictures of it from close to 100 years ago, where everything around it was just mud, essentially. And then you still had this giant golden structure in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, and you can see how like on the walls around the outside, there was murals of different stories and battles and famous people who had lived at the palace. And so that was pretty neat to get to see. But it was quite busy and very hot that day.
Very hot, because it doesn't stay open late. So you kind of either have to go early in the morning, which we kept saying we were going to, but it was week 3 and we weren't getting up that early.
We were tired. I feel like all the food we had was fantastic. I feel like the train was like very easy to navigate and like was great because it was free for the first couple days. So we did save quite a bit of money.
That's one thing that was strikingly different than KL. Getting places in KL is so much faster because I guess it's just so much smaller. It doesn't seem small.
No, it seems
but
huge.
Bangkok, it takes so long to get everywhere. And it's not due to inefficient subways or the SkyTrain. It works well. It's just big.
And there's so many people.
There's so many people
trying to get around at any given time. So
there we hardly ever use the grab and bolt type things because cars can't get around easily.
No,
it's easier to take a train.
You're going to be in that car for like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're just going like a short distance, it's going to take you forever just because of the traffic. So we did do a lot more on the train, which was fun. I enjoy other transit systems
because they're all better than ours.
All better than ours.
That's interesting. I wonder, because I've been on a lot of subways, is there one that I think is worse than ours? I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
It's not in Asia.
No.
It's not in Europe.
No. There's also like a lot more, not infrastructure, but like guides on how to use the train.
North America is just bad at public transit because we're like, take my car out of my cold dead hands.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
I remember one day you were very, very tired and hot. And then I said, let's stop at this place because it's called Yummy. And it has a picture of a bear on it. And we went in and had a few drinks and we really liked it. So that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a very cute
bear. Shout out to Yummy.
When
we ordered beer and they're like, we don't have it. And then the other lady was like, don't worry about it. And left, went to a convenience store, bought some beer, and sold it to us and marked up the price. And I was like, you know what? Cool.
Whatever.
I'm good with that.
Doesn't matter. You went and got it, and I can sit in your air-conditioned restaurant and drink it. I'm happy. And that happened to us another time where we ordered water at a restaurant, and the guy clearly went to just like the convenience store around the corner and then was like trying to sell these other bottles of water that he had bought while he was there to the other people sitting at the tables with us, it was funny. But they were very hospitable.
Outside of taking the subway, I did enjoy the times we got to take the boats.
Yes.
Because there are some big ones. That has changed a lot since I was there last.
Yes, you were saying they were like teeny tiny little boats.
I was saying like, okay, get ready for these boats because it's going to be a little sketchy. And then it pulled up and it's a big ferry. And I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's a little different now. But then when we took the smaller boats on the little canals, though, that was kind of more what I was used to.
Okay, yeah. That was very interesting. And you had to be ready to jump off at like a moment's notice. And we didn't know that there was a way to tell the driver you wanted to get off at the next stop. So we missed our stop on the first boat ride we took.
Yeah. And then I guess you probably have to give a 7-Eleven recap because as we learned on the last episode, your favorite part of travel is 7-Eleven.
Apparently, yeah. I'm such a 7-Eleven fan and I miss it every day. But we'd have our cheese toasties or ham and pineapple toastie as Indy would usually get. And we'd get some water, some beer. They had everything that you could ever want. So it was convenient and absolutely everywhere.
But there was one thing that you wanted that they didn't have, and that was remaining Butter Bear merchandise.
Yeah, I was very sad. And now I'm sad because, of course, Butter Bear is still in my algorithm. And they just came out with like 3 new things and everyone's showing off their Butter Bear merch. And I'm a little sad about it. But it's all right because you made me a really nice Butter Bear Valentine.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts?
Let's go again.
All right. Well, I guess we usually do this at the beginning. So this was my thing, was traveling around Asia. And I said, I love this. So, Samantha, I love this. Do you?
I loved it.
You should too, and you do.
I do. It's a love. It's a 10 out of 10.
So you always prefer to go to France. You would... Before we went, you're like, we can just keep going to France forever. And I think you'd be very happy because you love it there. And you love, wanted to go to England, things like that. And I was like, you know what? Other places might be a lot more fun. Do you think that is the case?
I still really want to see parts of Europe that I have not been to.
Sure.
But I do think Asia is like a whole place that there's like so many other places that I want to go to there.
But now, would you rather go to, say, Vietnam or Paris again?
Probably Vietnam.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot on this trip. and I like learned about places kind of like around Malaysia and Thailand just by like eating at restaurants and like seeing different things that were offered in Malaysia and in Thailand. And so it made me more excited to like go to those places.
It was almost too bad that we were like a real couple-y couple. We didn't leave each other very often.
No, we were together for like 3 weeks straight.
And it kind of insulates you from everything else, right? Like we could have been in so many places doing the very similar things. And the one thing I was a little sad about, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't meet anybody.
Oh yeah.
I used to always, well, when you're traveling alone, of course, you're making friends all over
Talking
the
to people.
place. And we didn't do any of that
No.
because we're like, what do we need other people for? We're good right here. And you maybe got insulated a bit in not having to like go out there and deal with people who don't speak the same languages as you as much. But
there was very little of that. You were correct.
Yeah.
When you were first telling me about it in our first episode about Asia, you were saying like it's not a big language barrier that you're going to come up
for
against.
these places.
Yeah.
But maybe we should go to some places where it is,
Okay.
because that's fun too.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our little travel series. Hopefully we get to do it again, or hopefully someone likes these episodes. I don't think they were great. But hopefully someone else does, and they pay us to travel and do more of them. We will do it.
Yeah, I will absolutely travel for money.
To be frank, we'll do a podcast on whatever if you pay us.
True. Yes.
You can pick our next movie. You give me $100, well, we'll do whatever movie you want.
Yeah, perfect. We set our price. There we go.
Yeah. If you are a hack director and you want someone to talk about your movie, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. Just it's sponsored content.
So many of my friends are hack directors. I was a hack director. I wasn't even hack. I wasn't good enough to be that.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. We can be bought.
Very easily. Our price is low.
Yes. Okay, well, we will see you next week when we get back to movies.
Yeah, we'll each have a spoiler-free thing of the fortnight, and then I think it's my turn.
It's your turn, yes.
I'll let you know what we're watching for the big watch after that.
Perfect. Okay, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.